There's a moment in life when you're standing at the edge of something unbearable. Your circumstances feel suffocating. The weight on your shoulders seems designed specifically to break you. And in that moment, someone tells you this hardship might actually be a blessing. Your first instinct, to reject it entirely, to think they're naive, disconnected from your reality, or worse, that they're mocking you. But what if they're not wrong? The things we despise most about our current situations are often the very catalyst that will transform us into who we're meant to become. This isn't about pretending pain doesn't exist or that struggle is pleasant. It's about understanding something deeper about how life actually works, how growth actually happens, and why the universe sometimes allows us to experience things we'd never consciously choose. Think about this. Every single person who has achieved something meaningful, who has become someone of substance, who has contributed value to this world, they didn't get there through comfort. They got there through friction, through pressure, through circumstances that made them want to quit. The question isn't whether you'll face hardship. You will. The real question is what you'll do with it when it arrives. We live in a time where we're constantly exposed to highlight reels. We see successful people and we imagine their journeys were smooth, that doors opened easily, that success came as a natural extension of talent. But if you actually study the lives of people who matter, you find something consistent. The greatest breakthroughs came after the deepest breakdowns. The most profound wisdom came through the most painful experiences. The strength they possess wasn't inherited. It was forged through adversity. Consider the person who loses their job. In the moment of receiving that pink slip, it feels like devastation. It feels like failure. It feels like the world is conspiring against you. But many people who've experienced this eventually look back and say it was the best thing that ever happened to them. Because that forced pause, that unwanted break from routine, that pressure to reconsider everything, it led them somewhere they never would have gone otherwise. It led them to a path more aligned with their actual purpose. It led them to discover capabilities they didn't know they possessed. Or think about the person dealing with chronic illness. In the midst of it, the suffering is real and valid. But many will tell you that their illness became their teacher. It taught them what mattered. It stripped away the noise and the nonsense and the things they were doing just because society said they should. It brought them clarity. It connected them to their humanity in ways comfort never could. The mechanism behind this is simple. Pressure forces adaptation. Pressure forces creativity. Pressure forces you to access parts of yourself that would remain dormant if everything were fine. You could spend your entire life with unlimited resources, unlimited time, unlimited comfort, and never discover what you're truly capable of. But one genuine crisis, one real hardship, suddenly you find strength you didn't know existed. Suddenly you find resilience you never needed to develop before. This is the paradox that most people miss. The very things we're running from, the very things we're angry about, the very things we desperately want to escape, these are often our greatest teachers. They're not punishments. They're not random cruelty from an indifferent universe. They're invitations. They're opportunities wrapped in terrible packaging. Let's talk about what hardship actually does to you if you approach it correctly. First, it demolishes your illusions. When you're comfortable, you can convince yourself of almost anything. You can believe you're more capable than you are or less capable than you are. You can live in fantasies about who you are and what you want. But hardship strips that away ruthlessly. Suddenly you see yourself clearly. You see what you're actually made of. You see what truly matters to you when everything else is taken away. Second, hardship develops competence. There's no substitute for this. You can read about how to handle pressure, how to make difficult decisions, how to persist through setbacks. But until you've actually done it, until you've faced something that genuinely tested you and pushed through it anyway, you haven't really learned it. It's the difference between knowing the path and walking the path. Hardship makes you walk it. Third, hardship creates empathy and wisdom. When you've suffered, when you've struggled, you understand other people's struggles in a way you simply cannot if you've never experienced them. You become compassionate not because you've learned it intellectually, but because you've lived it. You become wise not because you've read about it, but because you've survived it and learned its lessons directly. Fourth, hardship clarifies your values. In comfort, your priorities can be fuzzy. You can chase things you don't actually care about because everyone else is chasing them. But when you're in the middle of a genuine struggle, the trivial falls away and the essential becomes clear. You stop caring about impressing people. You stop worrying about status symbols. You focus on what actually sustains you, what actually matters, who actually loves you. Now, I understand what some of you might be thinking. This is easy to say when you're not the one suffering. And you're right. When you're in the middle of it, when the pain is acute and the uncertainty is overwhelming, this perspective can feel insensitive or even offensive. I'm not asking you to feel grateful for suffering in the moment. That's not the point. The point is to understand that there's a potential within every hardship that goes beyond the hardship itself. There's a gift hidden in the wrapping of pain. But here's what's crucial. The gift doesn't automatically unwrap itself. You have to actively engage with the hardship in a way that transforms it. This is where people often go wrong. They endure the hardship, they survive it, they get through it, but they don't extract the value from it. They don't ask themselves the hard questions. They don't seek the lesson. They don't allow the experience to change them. And so they end up having wasted the opportunity that the hardship presented. Think about someone who goes through a painful breakup. One person ends it, feels the pain, and then repeats the exact same patterns with the next person, learning nothing. Another person goes through the same breakup and uses it as an opportunity to deeply examine themselves, to understand their patterns, to heal the wounds that caused them to attract or accept the wrong partner. The hardship is the same, but one person extracts treasure from it while the other just accumulates scars. This is the work that's required. This is what separates people who grow from hardship and people who are merely hardened by it. The hardening happens automatically when you face difficulty. Your natural instinct is to build walls, to protect yourself, to become tougher. But growth requires something else. It requires curiosity. It requires the willingness to be vulnerable even while you're suffering. It requires you to ask, what is this trying to teach me? Who am I becoming through this? How can I extract meaning from this pain? Let's consider a practical example. Someone works for a boss who is deeply unfair, dismissive, and underappreciative. Every day at work is miserable. Every interaction reinforces a sense of being undervalued. The easy path is to hate the job, hate the boss, feel victimized, and eventually quit or get fired. But what if you approached it differently? What if you saw this as a training ground? What if you asked, what can I learn from this situation about myself? What patterns am I repeating? Am I allowing someone else's lack of respect to determine my self-worth? What can I develop here? Patience, resilience, discernment, professional boundaries. What if you use this difficult relationship to develop skills in communication, in standing up for yourself, in maintaining your dignity under disrespect? If you approach it this way, even if you eventually leave that job, you don't leave empty-handed. You leave transformed. You leave stronger. You leave with capabilities you didn't have before. And that's the gift that was hidden in the difficulty. Or consider financial hardship. Many people who have experienced poverty or serious financial struggle say it was one of the most valuable experiences of their lives because it forced them to become creative with limited resources. It taught them the difference between wants and needs. It showed them what they could live without. It developed in them an appreciation for small things. Many of the wealthiest and most successful people in the world have come from backgrounds of financial difficulty, and they often credit that difficulty with developing the habits and mindset that eventually led to their success. The person raised in poverty who learns to be resourceful, disciplined, and grateful has advantages in life that many people raised with privilege never develop. Again, this isn't to romanticize poverty or to suggest it's good. It's to point out that within difficult circumstances, there are potential advantages if you know how to extract them. Here's another critical aspect that most people overlook. Hardship is often a redirection. We make plans. We set goals. We believe we know where we're going and what we want. But sometimes the universe has different plans. Sometimes the path we're on leads to a dead end and we don't see it. So hardship comes. Hardship blocks that path. Hardship forces us to detour. And often if we're willing to see it that way, that detour was exactly where we needed to go. The job we didn't get might have been a terrible fit. The relationship that ended might have been holding us back. The financial loss might have prevented us from making a bigger mistake. The illness might have forced us to slow down before we burned out completely. The rejection might have redirected us towards something actually aligned with our purpose. This is why it's so important to maintain a long-term perspective when you're in the middle of difficulty. You cannot see the full picture while you're inside it. You only have access to the present moment and the immediate pain. But if you can somehow trust that there's a larger pattern, that there's a purpose, even if you can't see it yet, it changes how you respond to the hardship. I'm not suggesting you adopt blind faith or ignore your circumstances. What I'm suggesting is that you hold your interpretation of events lightly. You might think this is the worst thing that could happen to you, and you might be completely wrong. You might think this ruins everything, and 5 years from now you might realize it was the turning point that made everything else possible. This is actually the foundation of resilience. Resilience isn't about not feeling pain or not experiencing difficulty. Resilience is about your relationship to difficulty. It's about your ability to interpret hardship in a way that doesn't destroy your hope or your sense of possibility. It's about seeing hardship as information rather than verdict, as an obstacle to navigate rather than evidence that you're doomed. Consider the athlete who gets injured. The injury is unwanted, the injury is painful, the injury disrupts everything they've been working toward. But many athletes who've come back from serious injuries say those injuries became pivotal moments in their careers, because the forced time away allowed them to develop mental strength. It allowed them to work on fundamentals in ways they wouldn't have if they were just competing. It allowed them to become stronger and smarter, not just faster and more talented. Or think about the person dealing with social anxiety or shyness in a world that constantly demands you be outgoing. The hardship of being uncomfortable in social situations is real. But many people who've overcome their anxiety say that the struggle itself taught them something valuable about human connection, about vulnerability, about courage. Someone who had everything come naturally to them might never develop the same depth of understanding. This pattern repeats across human experience. The hardship and the gift are not separate things. They're two sides of the same coin. You cannot extract the gift without going through the hardship. You cannot have the growth without the friction. But here's where people often make a mistake. They think this means they should invite hardship, that they should be grateful for suffering in real time, that they should adopt a martyr mentality. This is wrong. We don't need to go looking for hardship. Life provides plenty of it without our assistance. We don't need to romanticize suffering or pretend it's enjoyable. We can acknowledge that hardship is hard while also holding the understanding that it contains seeds of growth. The goal isn't to love the hardship. The goal is to extract the maximum value from it. The goal is to ensure that when you come out on the other side, you're not just a survivor, you're transformed, you're wiser, you're stronger, you're clearer about what matters, you've developed capabilities you didn't have before. And this requires something very specific. It requires you to stay conscious through the difficulty rather than just enduring it mechanically. It requires you to observe yourself and ask questions. It requires you to seek meaning rather than just seek escape. When you're facing hardship, one of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself is, how is this changing me? Not why is this happening to me, or when will this end? But how is this changing me? What am I learning? Who am I becoming through this? Another powerful question is, what is this forcing me to develop? Every hardship demands something from you. An illness demands patience, acceptance, and adaptation. A financial crisis demands creativity and discipline. A difficult relationship demands communication skills and emotional intelligence. A professional setback demands resilience and problem solving. If you can identify what the hardship is demanding from you, you can consciously work on developing it, which transforms the difficulty from something you're just enduring into something you're actively learning from. A third powerful question is, who could I help because of what I'm learning? This shifts you out of self-pity and victimhood into a larger perspective. As you move through your difficulty and begin to understand it, you realize you could use that understanding to help others facing similar challenges. You realize your pain could become medicine for someone else. This is profoundly transformative. It gives your suffering context and purpose beyond yourself. Now let's talk about something that's critical but often unspoken. Sometimes the hardship is not just an incidental challenge that will eventually pass. Sometimes it's a chronic condition, an ongoing struggle, a permanent change to your life. Someone loses a limb. Someone develops a lifelong illness. Someone loses someone they deeply loved and can never have them back. In these cases, the blessing isn't that the hardship goes away. The blessing is that it creates an entirely different life than the one you imagined. And often that life, while different from what you planned, turns out to be meaningful and valuable in ways you couldn't have predicted. I think of the people who become advocates for causes that are connected to their pain. The parent who loses a child and becomes an advocate for child safety. The person who recovers from addiction and becomes a counselor for others struggling with addiction. The person who survives abuse and becomes a voice for survivors. Their hardship is permanent, their loss is real, but they've chosen to let it mean something. They've chosen to transform it into purpose. This is one of the highest expressions of extracting blessing from hardship, when you allow your deepest pain to become your greatest contribution. Not because the pain is good, but because you've chosen to let it matter beyond yourself. But you don't need a dramatic story to do this. You don't need to be a hero to extract the blessing from your hardship. Sometimes it's simply about becoming a better parent because of what your struggles taught you. Sometimes it's about being a more compassionate friend because you understand difficulty. Sometimes it's about having more wisdom and perspective because you've been through something real. The key insight is this: your hardship is not wasted if you learn from it. It's not wasted if it changes you. It's not wasted if it develops something in you that wasn't there before. As long as you extract meaning and growth from it, it has served a purpose beyond the pain itself. This is why our approach to adversity matters so much. It's not just about the specific hardship you're facing. It's about your entire life trajectory. Because every hardship you face, every difficulty you navigate, every challenge you move through, each one either hardens you or develops you. Each one either closes you down or opens you up. Each one either teaches you or merely hurts you. The difference isn't in the hardship itself. The difference is in your engagement with it. Think about this. Two people face the exact same difficulty. One becomes bitter, resentful, and closed off. Another becomes wiser, more compassionate, and more whole. What's the difference? It's not the difficulty, it's the approach. It's the questions they ask. It's the meaning they make. It's the way they choose to interpret what's happening. The person who asks, "Why is this happening to me?" stays stuck in victimhood. The person who asks, "What is this teaching me?" moves toward growth. These are the same person facing the same hardship, but with entirely different outcomes based on the questions they ask themselves. This is actually liberating. It means you're not powerless in the face of hardship. You're not just a victim of circumstance. You have agency. You have choice. You can choose how you interpret what's happening. You can choose what you do with it. You can choose whether it destroys you or develops you, and this choice is available to you right now wherever you are in your struggle. You don't have to wait until you're on the other side of the difficulty to gain perspective. You can gain perspective now. You can start asking these questions now. You can start extracting the lessons now. The hardship you hate might indeed be your greatest blessing. Not because hardship is good, not because you should be grateful for suffering, but because hardship is the raw material of transformation. It's the pressure that forges character. It's the friction that develops capability. It's the wake-up call that redirects you toward what actually matters. And if you approach it with the right questions, with the right attitude, with the understanding that there's something to be learned and extracted, then even in the midst of your pain, you can begin to sense the gift that's hidden within it. You can begin to become not just a survivor of your circumstances, but someone transformed by them. That's the power of understanding that your hardship might be your greatest blessing.